Welcome. This is Gaby Cruz and Maria Jaimes. Today's presentation will review and analyze the perspectives presented on Chapter 7 about metacognition and problem solving, and will provide you with a brief introduction to the flow theory. Our presentation will be divided in 4 sections. We will begin by reviewing the concepts of metacognition, problem solving, and the flow theory. During the review, we will provide you with real-world application examples. We will finalize this presentation by putting all the theories together to try to find a link between them and to reflect on how these theories inform our practice. Let's begin with metacognition. The term metacognition was introduced by John Flavel in 1976. He described metacognition as a person's own awareness and consideration of his own cognitive process strategies. However, other theories and researchers had already started to think about the concept years before that. Vygotsky, for example, in 1962, was one of the first to realize that conscious, reflective control and deliberate mastery are essential factors in school learning. We now define metacognition as the ability that students have to guide their learning and monitor their own progress. Once students have increased their planning skills, they begin using their own comprehension strategies for better understanding. This is best known as thinking about thinking. Let's see 2 perspectives. Some metacognitive perspectives emphasize a person's knowledge about cognition and strategy, while others emphasize the knowledge and regulation of cognition. Knowledge about cognition entitles knowing of being aware of your own thinking and knowing when and where to use your acquired strategies. When it comes to regulation of cognition, the students will try to determine his level of understanding, which is also called evaluation, and his level of comprehension. The students who regulate cognition have an aware of the degree of their own comprehension. This is called comprehension monitoring. For example, how familiar were you with the concept of metacognition before reading about it? Did you feel like you had to reread several concepts because they were new to you? You probably knew that you were going to spend a long time on this chapter if you had never heard much about metacognition before, right? Or maybe you just browsed over the chapter if you were an expert who has already used metacognition in your teaching strategies. When talking about regulating cognition, it is important to differentiate the meaning of cognitive skills and cognitive strategies. If you were taking notes while reading Chapter 7, you were using your cognitive skill to facilitate your comprehension and learning. If you paused to look for meanings or unknown terms, or if you search for other more basic information about the theory on the internet, then you used a cognitive strategy. Metacognition for children. Researchers such as Campion, Watson, and Stenberg have found that when it comes to children, poor learners show marked delays in their metacognitive development. Poor learners have the metacognitive awareness of much younger children. They tend to overestimate the capacity of their memories, and they fail to try different approaches or to see that similar problems can be solved by similar means. Researchers have also found that one characteristic of very able, gifted children is that they have more metacognitive awareness than their less able peers. Children's metacognitive abilities do develop through maturation, but researchers agree that it can also be mediated through the encouragement of self-reflection. A model of metacognitive activities and studying developed by Wynne and Hadwin in 1998 described 4 stages. They are defining the task, goal setting and planning, enacting study tactics and strategies, and adapting studies. When defining a task, the students get a perception of the nature of the task. For example, after you finish watching this presentation, you may decide to browse over the week's activities to determine the level of difficulty and the time you may need to accomplish them. For goal setting, the student generates goals. For example, you may decide to set aside 2 hours a day to fully watch the videos, the articles, and to respond to the conversation for these lessons. During enacting study tactics, you implement the activities you planned in the previous stage, and you fine-tune your strategies if necessary. The final step, adapting study, is the one that requires the most of your metacognitive abilities. It will be a reflection of your overall studying process and the probably need to adapt any of the prior stages. If this week's plans and strategies did not work for you, you will reflect on what went wrong and plan to do something different for next week's lessons.
Problem solving. Initially, researchers began looking at problem solving outside of school. Researchers believed that simple domains allowed the development of strategies. They thought that this could be expanded to semantic-rich domains. There was an example called the Tower of Hanoi. That's the picture that you see over there in your screen. The goal was to transfer disks one at a time without putting a big disk on top of a small disk. There's some prior research for problem solving. There are four research. The first one is GPS. There are some principles for GPS. Problem solving behavior involves means ends analysis, which means breaking a problem down into subcomponents, sub-goals, and solving each of these. There's a laboratory footage showing a pigeon solving Wolfgang Kohler's famous bugs and banana problem. That's the picture that you see in your screen. The link will be in the blog for a specific day that you will be able to see the link. Dr. Robert Epstein and his colleagues used operant conditioning to get pigeons to solve the problem spontaneously in the 1980s. Depending on the previous experience, a pigeon could solve this problem in a human-like fashion in as little as a minute. Another research is heuristics. It's a word from the Greek meaning to discover. It is an approach to problem solving that takes one's personal experience into account. To solve the problem, extensive research is unnecessary. An example of heuristics problem solving is when you use educated guess, working backwards, or common sense. Another research for problem solving is artificial intelligence theory. Is the use of computer programs to understand intelligence. A concern that there's with this approach is that computers don't reason the way humans do. An example that I have for this theory is I'm doing a writing camp at this time, and one of my kids who is going to first grade is obsessed with checkers. He made his own board game and was teaching me his version of the game. While he was teaching me his version of the game, he was already thinking ahead 2 or 3 moves while he was playing. And when you play checkers in the computer it's already can do 500 billion moves at a time. Another research for problem solving is the ACT-R theory. This theory involves the reduced retrieval times of steps in the original instruction and combine 2 rules into one. A problem with this theory is that doesn't take into consideration the learning of the student prior to the compilation. There are different kinds of memory. The basic assumption of this theory is that knowledge is in the declarative memory and the procedural memory. There's one example for this theory is when students have to solve a 3-digit addition, they have to focus on the rules to help them solve this problem. Like they have to know that they have to carry the numbers and to be able to solve the addition problem.